For more on this, it's bringing international relations analyst Professor Gilbert Khadiagala to weigh in on Zimbabwe elections as voting is underway in the country's second general election since a 2017 coup deposed the late ruler Robert Mugabe. Prof. Gilbert, good afternoon and thank you for your time with us here on the ACBC.
Good afternoon, Lisa. Thank you.
We have heard some reports emerging about the late arrival of resources, voting stations as a result now opening late, and concerns about ink being able to be removed from fingertips, allowing people to vote more than once. Given some of these reports emerging, will this be a free and fair and credible election from a vantage point, given the socio-political climate in Zimbabwe?
It depends on how widespread those problems are. If it's a question of delays, the Electoral Commission has promised that they would extend the hours because the elections are supposed to end at 7. But if people would not have voted by 7, they could be extended. So the delays are, to me, not a big problem. The other problems would be probably, as you are saying, if somebody is deliberately tampering with the fingerprinting and so on, that to me would be a bigger concern. But I expect that the elections are going to be run fairly smoothly. And I think given the vastness of the country and the very poor infrastructure, I think we expect that some of these problems that are coming up now are very much inevitable in the context of a country that has faced a lot of problems in actually running things. So I would not be surprised that we have all these problems that are coming up. The issue is whether somebody is out there wanting to deliberately sabotage the election, and you cannot rule that out because this has happened in Zimbabwe in the past, particularly with the military heavily involved in the electoral process. So that is the biggest worry, I think.
At this point, as President Emmerson Mnangagwa seeks a second term, some dubbed him as a reformer following former President Robert Mugabe. Others accusing of having repressive measures. What do you make of his tenure to date? And do you think, what do you think the chances are as he squares off against Nelson Chamisa, has now officially become one of the main opposition leaders for him during these elections?
There was significant optimism around Emmerson Mnangagwa's presidency, particularly after so many years of the draconian rule of Mr. Robert Mugabe. I should say here that those promises have not been fulfilled. In fact, things have continued in the very same manner as they did under Mugabe. And that's why some people are very skeptical about the ability of this election to produce any significant change. Not too long ago, the parliament passed a bill that essentially criminalizes association and criminalizes public meetings. So it was a very deliberate effort to say that we don't trust the people to make a right decision, and that is why these moves were made, in fact, to begin to disenfranchise the voters. So the reforms were promised, but these reforms have never occurred. And it's also because the power behind Mugabe remains pretty much intact. You have, as I said, the military, you have a state that has a stake in unfair elections, and they don't really want to share power. And so these elections are not really going to produce any change if we go by what has been happening over the 4 years Mr. Mnangagwa has been in power.
Key issues are also going to come to the fore. Perhaps it will be what voters use as they make their mark. Issues of unemployment, there's issues in the public healthcare sector, high uninflation, even the precarious economic situation. But we're also seeing Zimbabwe has vast resources, including, Africa's largest deposit of lithium reserves. I wonder how these key issues are going to drive, how they vote this time round.
See, the economic issues, particularly issues around governance, around corruption, are really going to loom very large in the elections. but it also speaks to the issue around there has been no attempt to redistribute resources, even though these countries are very rich countries, but the leadership has never been interested in the very bread and butter issues that now constitute the gist of the election. So we are going back to the same old scenario of the Mugabe years, where people are complaining about economic mismanagement, about corruption, about decline in their livelihoods. But the regime has never had any sense to put up policies that would address those very same issues. And that's why particularly the young people are very disenchanted with the ZANU-PF, because it has never been seen to be making any reforms that are going to improve the lot of the young people who are now 62% of people of the 25-year-olds. So this is a large youth population, but their lives are not getting any better and things are getting worse.
Oh, Prof, we're obviously monitoring developments as that unfolds. As we know that the polling stations are set to close at 7 p.m., but given the delays and also some of the other dynamics unfolding, we'll have to see what transpires from here into. But Prof, we'll leave that conversation there. Thank you for your time with us on the SABC. Professor Gilbert Khadiagala, just international relations analyst weighing in as Zimbabwe heads to the polls.